Welcome to this presentation on domestic asset protection planning. For those of you who have wealth, this will be one of the most important presentations you ever view. Hi, my name is Roccy DeFrancesco. I am an attorney. I'm also the founder of the Wealth Preservation Institute, creator of the Certified Wealth Preservation Planner, Certified Asset Protection Planner, and Certified Medicaid Planner designations, and I'm also the co-founder of the Asset Protection Society. And as you can see on this slide, I'm also an author, and these are the 5 books I've put out, including my most recent one, Bad Advisors, How to Identify Them, How to Avoid Them. Now, is your asset protection plan put together? Most clients only have a few pieces of their puzzle put together. They might have their estate plan done, they might think they've got their financial plan done. Very few actually have anything done when it comes to core asset protection planning. An advisor's job, if they know anything about asset protection, is to help put their plan together, which includes stock market risk mitigation, long-term care coverage, hardcore asset protection from your creditors, negligence lawsuits, reducing taxes, etc., etc. So when you're dealing with asset protection, it's not simply as easy as saying, I'm going to protect you from negligence lawsuits. There are other things that you need to be protected from. Now, when we're doing asset protection planning, we don't want to put our eggs all in one basket. So we're going to use a multiple entity approach. Sometimes we're going to use debt shields. We certainly want to segregate assets. We want to put an asset in this bucket over here or in this entity over here. We're going to segregate real estate and valuable equipment, and it's a way to shield your assets with much more certainty than putting them all in one basket. So when we talk about asset protection tools, there's a couple different ones we're going to talk about. We can talk about ones given to us by law, which are your homestead exemption, which in some states is complete, like Texas and Florida and a few other states. And in some states there's virtually no homestead protection, so you need to be careful of that. Certain states protect life insurance and annuities, so cash value life or annuities. Some states have total protection, some have none. And then your wages in many states are protected, but if you're a somewhat affluent client, that's really not going to be overly helpful to you. But when we're really talking about doing asset protection planning, we're talking about taking action, which means we're going to use structures. Structures such as family limited partnerships or limited liability companies. Sometimes we're going to recommend offshore planning. Many times we'll use irrevocable trusts, and again, using debt shields is very commonplace. So what is asset protection planning? As I indicated before, most people will talk about asset protection planning in the context of a negligence lawsuit. You had a car accident. If you're a professional, you had a professional liability suit. But again, it can also involve other types of creditors. Now, who's your number one creditor every single year? Well, what quickly should have come to your mind is the IRS. So many people are paying far too much in income taxes, especially profitable small business owners. So when you reduce your taxes, that is a form of asset protection. How many of you have lost money in the stock market? Well, just about everybody from 2000 to 2002, and from the highs of 2008 to the lows of 2009. So I view the stock market as a creditor. And again, once you get over a certain age, one of the biggest expenses you're going to have, meaning somebody who's going to take your money, are long-term care costs. And so many times we also want to talk to you about protecting that from a spend down of your estate. So what is good asset protection planning? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not about hiding assets. Back in the day, meaning about 5 to 10 years ago, there were asset protection gurus out there that were telling you, you know what good asset protection planning is? It's about hiding your assets. If you can hide them, nobody can find them, and therefore they're protected. Well, just generally speaking, in a lawsuit, when you lose that lawsuit, even though you may have these hidden assets, what you're going to do is you're going to go to an exam, and you're going to have an attorney put a piece of paper in front of you, and the attorney's going to say, hey, can you list for me all of your assets? And by the way, there's a special part down at the bottom of the sheet that says hidden assets. I really want to know all of your hidden assets. Now, you could lie and not fill that out, but again, there's no way to quote-unquote hide assets. So if you're having somebody tell you that, be very wary. So we want to use existing laws to put up barriers in front of creditors to discourage lawsuits from the outset, or certainly to encourage settlements. Now, I tried not to make fun of too many people in these videos, but do you know any personal injury attorneys? Now, I went to law school, and we had personal injury attorneys in law school as well that ended up being them anyways. And so what I can tell you about a personal injury attorney is they're usually a lot of fun to hang out with in law school and after law school. If you wanted to go to the bar in law school, you would go to the bar, and guess who would be there? The attorney who ended up being a personal injury attorney. Again, very fun. Now, very bright people as well. However, what they don't want to do is a ton of work. You didn't see them in the library hanging out. They somehow, again, they got through law school, they passed the bar. Now they're a lawyer. You know what they want to do? They want to get cases in the door, and they want to work them up for settlement. What they don't want to do is chase your assets or have to break down barriers to get at your assets. So when we're talking about asset protection, many times what we're talking about is putting up barriers in front of a personal injury attorney that you know, if you put up enough barriers, will give up. That's really what asset protection planning is about. So good asset protection is legal. It can be complicated or it can be simple. That's really up to you and your advisor. It can be expensive or not. Many people think of asset protection as this, I don't want to do it because it's going to be overly expensive. That's not true. You can put a plan in place, a simple one, for very little money. Now, it may not be the best one, but it's certainly better than doing nothing. And again, we can go domestic or we can go offshore. And we'll talk a little bit offshore in another video. I won't be covering that in today's video. So again, good asset protection cannot prevent the lawsuit, but it can hinder the creditor from getting their hands on your money, which in fact means what? They're going to settle the case earlier. And again, that's what asset protection planning is about. Now, who needs asset protection planning? It may seem like an obvious question, but let me give you an obvious answer. Anybody who has money or assets needs asset protection. So typically what I'm talking about is a high income or high net worth client, but it doesn't always have to be the super affluent who need asset protection. If you have assets that are worth something and you are afraid of losing them or don't want to lose them, then you are a candidate for asset protection. Now, who really needs asset protection? Physicians, attorneys, CPAs, accountants, EAs, financial planners, stockbrokers, insurance agents, and architects. Why do they really need it versus the general public? Because these people are professionals, and a professional cannot hide behind a corporate entity to avoid a lawsuit. So when you're putting widgets into the stream of commerce out of a C corporation, if you own the C corporation, just because you put defective widgets out doesn't mean that you're going to get sued personally. You can hide behind the C corporation or S corp or LLC or whatever the entity may be. However, if you're a doctor and you cut off the wrong leg, just because you were working for a medical practice or you were working for a company doesn't mean that you can put the liability on the company. You have the liability personally. You will be sued personally, which is why professionals need asset protection more so than any other type of client, if you will, out there. All right, so what if you're watching this and you're not a professor, you're not a doctor, lawyer, etc.? Are there reasons that you need to be asset protected? And there certainly are. And so let me tell you a few little stories that hopefully will motivate you to learn more about asset protection and to in fact become asset protected. So, if you own a personal residence, you have asset protection issues. If you have a teenage child, you have asset protection issues. A boat, an automobile, a wave runner, or a snowmobile. And so I typically, again, a couple different stories I'll try to get through quickly. If you have a teenage child, let's say the age of 17, they're living in your house, they're driving your car, etc. What happens in this following example? So you're going to go with your spouse, let's say, to a football game. You live in a town where the professional sports team or college sports team is what? I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour. Let's say it's 2 hours away. And you're going to tell your child on Friday morning, let's say, that you're going to go to a Friday night football game in a town that's 2 hours away. Now, what do you tell your child? We're going to this football game. When we're gone, we don't want you to have people over. We don't want you to have your friends over. And if you have friends over, what don't we really want you not to do? Gosh, we don't want you to drink, okay? And you think so well of your child, as we all do, and you look at them and they say, oh, okay, Mom and Dad, I get that, I won't do it. Now, Friday afternoon is rolling around, they're in school. What do they do in school? Well, in the old days, they would pass a message around school, right? What do they do today? They get their little BlackBerry, their cell phone, and they text around, hey, so-and-so's mom's out of town, the party's at her house. And except this is your house. Now, you're at home, it's Friday afternoon, you're leaving. You're walking out the front door. Who's coming in the back door? Well, all of your child's friends. And unfortunately, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, whatever, you're a professional that's in a high-stress industry, and you know what that means? That means that you have a stocked liquor cabinet, right? And so, now, this wasn't even a BYOB party. These kids are going to come, they're going to party it up in your house, and they're going to drink your liquor. Now, this is a Friday evening game, a couple hours away, the game gets over, let's say 11 o'clock. What are you so stupid that you do on the way home? We all, we're all parents, well, I would imagine most people watching this are parents, many of them. What do we do when we get on the way home? We're about 30 minutes out, and what are we going to do? We're going to call the child because, of course, the child's wondering where we're at and wondering if we're okay as a parent.